Hey there, House here. This episode will have a couple different elements to it. I'll be giving you my predictions for the fifth week of the NFL season, as well as my Major League Baseball postseason predictions. Now, I know by the time that you view this, the MLB postseason wildcard series will be over, and the first set of the divisional games will have started, but I can assure you that my predictions have been made beforehand. So, first off, I picked the Yankees to beat the Red Sox and the Cardinals to beat the Dodgers. So far I'm off to a rough start. After that, in the American League, we'll have the Red Sox versus the Rays. This should be an entertaining series for both teams, showcasing a good, if not great, offense. The Rays have a little bit better of a pitching staff, so I believe they'll take this series. Then we have the White Sox versus the Astros. They both have a great pitching staff with a pretty good bullpen, and their offenses are solid top to bottom. As you can tell, both teams are pretty comparable. I'll be picking the Sox in this one. Those outcomes set up an ALCS matchup between the White Sox and the Rays. Both teams have a great staff and a solid offense. This series should come down to whichever team will have the most timely hits. I'll be picking the Sox in this one. In the National League, we start off with the Giants versus the Dodgers. The Dodgers pitching staff is one of the greatest around, so they'll be tough to overcome. The Giants were the best team in the league this year. After posting a season with 107 wins, I don't see them losing this series. I'm picking the Giants. Next up, we'll have the Braves versus the Brewers. I believe that if you told any Braves fan that they'd still make the playoffs after Acuna tore his ACL, they'd have a hard time believing you. But they made some acquisitions to acquire some outfield help that brought their power bats to help them push for the playoffs. The Brewers made their way to the postseason by pitching and timely hitting as opposed to blowing teams out of the water. I'll be picking the Brewers in this series. That gives us an NLCS matchup of the Brewers versus the Giants. The Giants, very much like the Brewers, have a really good pitching staff, but they have a bit better offense behind them. I believe the Giants will take this series. That'll give us a matchup between the Chicago White Sox and the San Francisco Giants. Two teams that have good pitching as well as good hitting. The advantage here goes right to the Giants as they will have home field with their fans backing them in the postseason at full capacity. Both teams have star players that will be looking to either make a name or a legacy for themselves. It can also be assumed that this series will go all the way to Game 7. I'm picking the White Sox to win their first championship since 2005. Now, on to the NFL, shall we? Last week wasn't my best week. It was, in fact, a tie for my first week. Albeit an early season so far, I went 9-7, bringing my overall record to 38-26, and my win percentage back down to 59%. Our first set of games, we have the Seahawks versus the Rams. What should be an entertaining game with plenty of offense from both sides. I'll be looking for a bounce back from Matthew Stafford in this game. The Seahawks played a lot better last week against the 49ers than they had in a couple weeks past. I'm picking the Rams with a Stafford bounce back like I mentioned, as well as their defense to get after Wilson. Next we have the Falcons versus the Jets. The Jets got a surprising win last week against the Tennessee Titans. Wilson took a big step forward for them. The Falcons actually played well, and the good Matt Ryan showed up. This game will be played in London, so there will be a bit of a time change to adjust to. Maybe the slight advantage goes to Matt Ryan because he played in London 7 years ago and could be used to it more than Wilson. Who knows? I'm picking the Falcons here. Texans versus Patriots. The Patriots played well against the Bucs, a lot better than I believe anyone would have anticipated. Their defense held them to just 19 points and lost on a last-minute field goal. The Texans looked pretty bad and don't really show signs of getting any better. I'm picking the Patriots here. Vikings versus Lions. The Lions struggled against the run last week, and Goff hasn't had a strong showing to start the year. The Vikings, when right and when Dalvin Cook is healthy, can put some points on the board. I'm picking the Vikings. Panthers versus Eagles. The Eagles played a lot better against the Kansas City Chiefs defense that didn't offer up much resistance. The Panthers struggled against a bad Cowboys defense. However, I'll be looking for the Panthers to have a bounce back in beating the Eagles here. Next is Washington versus the Saints. The Saints played pretty bad against the Giants. There's no two ways about it. Washington came back and won a high-scoring affair against the Falcons. But giving up 30 points to the Falcons is showing me that Washington's front seven still isn't stopping anyone. I'm picking the Saints here. Next up, we have the Jaguars versus the Titans. The Jaguars lost their fourth game of the season, and their head coach celebrated by going back to Ohio and drinking with college students. The Titans lost to a really bad Jets team. Tennessee will be looking for a bounce back here against another bad team. I'm picking the Titans here. Buccaneers versus the Dolphins. The Bucs did not look very good against the Patriots, but they still found a way to win. So I guess there's that. The Dolphins still aren't playing well under Brissett, even though against the Raiders he helped them force an overtime. They were non-existent last week. I'll be picking the Bucs here. Then we have the Bengals versus the Packers. The Packers have been on a little bit of a roll offensively since week 1. The Bengals have been playing some pretty decent football in their own right, but I'll be picking the Packers in this matchup. Steelers versus Broncos. The Broncos lost a tough one last week and struggled once Bridgewater left with a concussion. The Steelers have looked bad for 2 weeks in a row. If Bridgewater plays, I'm picking the Broncos here, but be sure to monitor that before Sunday rolls around. Next game is the Raiders versus the Bears. The Bears played well last week under Montgomery's legs, but they'll be without his services for at least 4 to 5 weeks with the knee sprain. The Raiders lost a tough one last week to the Charger team that's only getting better and better. I'll be picking the Raiders in a bounce-back performance as I believe the Bears will struggle without the services of Montgomery. Next up, we have the Chargers versus the Browns. The Chargers have been playing really good football nearly all season long. The Browns, on the other hand, haven't been slouches either. I'll be picking the Browns in this tough matchup. Cowboys versus the Giants. The Giants played well to knock off the Saints, and the Cowboys have been playing well over the past couple of weeks. Their defense still isn't their strong suit, but they've shown that they can score with the best of them. I'm picking the Cowboys. Cardinals versus the 49ers. The 49ers have been a little up and down this year, with their defense showing to not be their strong suit thus far. I'm picking the Cardinals here. Next is the Chiefs versus the Bills. The Chiefs bounced back last week after losing 2 in a row, something Mahomes is unfamiliar with. They did, however, give up 30 points to a not-so-great Eagles offense. The Bills continue to whip up on the weaker competition that this league has to offer and posted another shutout. I'm picking the Bills with some momentum rolling their way. And lastly, we have the Ravens versus the Colts. The Colts played better as Wentz continues to get healthier. The Ravens looked good last week after looking horrible 2 weeks ago against the Lions. Jackson has been able to connect with some deep passes, which is something they have failed to do this season. I'm picking the Ravens here. Well, there you have it. Those are my picks. Thank you for tuning into the House Report. If there were some selections that you disagree with, please leave your own picks in the comment section. As always, I hope this week's pick go better than last week. And for all my betting friends out there, remember, you win some and you'll lose some, but the house always wins.